Jonathan Martin, some news just coming in. Former Attorney General Alberto Gonzales, who's the AG to former President George W. Bush, just posted an endorsement in Politico of Kamala Harris. So a few days after Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney, not exactly a group of liberal squishes here, coming out, and he's making a he makes a long and detailed critique of Donald Trump, of his lack of respect for the rule of law, of his affinity for authoritarianism, and he believes Kamala Harris will uphold those things.
Well, I'm just looking forward to the Bernie Sanders and Dick Cheney retreat at Camp David next year, where they're going to plot the first Kamala Harris term. You know, I think it's going to be a really interesting tell. Yeah, look, I think there's going to be a lot more people who come out from the kind of Bush orbit. But guys, to me, the big question is the former president himself, George W. Bush. He's the most prominent American figure who has not been counted for yet on the great question of our time, which is Trump for or against him, because he's trying to pull option C. And frankly, there's just not an option C. And it's hard to sustain that, but it looks like he's going to try here for one more term. But if you're George W. Bush and you see Donald Trump stand up on stage and you say, there's something new, it's called migrant crime. And George W. Bush ran a campaign famously, as Joe knows, where he said family values do not stop at the Rio Grande. And he was trying to reorient his party around a different approach when it came to migration and, frankly, the Hispanic community. And for George W. Bush to, I think, see what Donald Trump is doing, which is effectively make his entire campaign about demagoguing immigrants and stay silent, I think it's got to be difficult. I know why he wants to stay out of it, but I think it's got to be tough for the former president, given where his heart is on those kinds of issues, to stay out of this game. Because, again, that is the centerpiece of the campaign. Haitians are eating dogs in an American city. All the crime is being caused by migrants. Never mind the facts. That's the centerpiece of the Trump campaign. Really, the GOP campaign this fall is bashing immigrants. And, that's not what those folks signed up for in Austin. And I think it's got to be hard for them to watch it now.
Yeah, Joe, George W. Bush's office has said he is not going to make a public endorsement of a candidate in this race. Just one excerpt in this long piece from former Attorney General Gonzales. He writes this: there is little evidence that Donald Trump has the integrity and character to responsibly wield the power of the presidency within the limits of the law, and no amount of rationalization to support Trump because of his policies can overcome the disqualification of this man based on his lack of integrity. Again, that's the former Attorney General for George W. Bush.
Yeah, and I'll say, Jonathan O'Meara, if you look at what George W. Bush did, obviously vilified by a lot of people on the left as being, shredding the Constitution. I always talked about my walks up and down the Upper West Side and all the Hitler mustaches on Bush here, Bush there. There's been such a dramatic reassessment of George W. Bush. And that usually happens when you're responsible for a program that saves over 20 million lives in Africa. That usually happens when people look back at what Donald Trump's done. And as J. Mark said, remember the man saying that family values don't end at the Rio Grande River. When you have a man after 9/11 going to a mosque and embracing Arab Americans, saying they are every bit as much of American as am I. That is somebody with an eye toward his legacy that, I would hope, and I know a lot of people would hope, would reconsider standing on the sidelines just for legacy's sake, because Dick Cheney's not standing on the sidelines. Trump's own generals aren't standing on the sidelines. Conservatives over the past 30 years, conservative leaders over the past 30 years are not standing on the sidelines. It would be significant and, the right thing to do, I think, if he did get off the sidelines and actually tell the truth about Donald Trump.
Yeah, I think it would be significant. A lot of these endorsements don't move the needle that much when a Republican or former Republican comes out. for Kamala Harris or says, no, I can't stand for Donald Trump, I think a former president of the United States, I think that would make the difference. And I think it also would send Donald Trump into spasms of rage, and who knows how he would respond. But as Willie noted, the former president's team has consistently said he's not going to do that. He's just not involved in presidential politics anymore. Well, we have 50-plus days to see perhaps if that would change.